Hello, dear friends. Paul Willis here, creator and author of The Rended Wall, a tabletop role playing game sourcebook and world setting that is forthcoming. I'm hoping to get it published near the end of 2026 if all things go well. I will be starting a Kickstarter campaign to raise funding for this. I am doing this. This is number one of our developer diaries series. I wanted to do this series kind of to show you guys an inside look of just kind of the process of putting this book together, my creative process, get give you all a chance to get to know me, and give you all a chance to get to know the world of Solaria, which is the setting for the book. This is a setting I've been working on since I was a teenager, and it's been in development for a very, very long time. So I have a lot of material built up and written, as well as some really fun maps. I thought I might take a chance today to kind of go through the world map of Stellaria and give you a breakdown of some of the really fun locations that players and game masters will have a chance to explore when they're in the world of Stellaria. So. Um, First and foremost, as far as developer diaries go, I am fully in the process of starting that Kickstarter campaign. Like I said, I am about halfway through getting the campaign written out and put onto the website. It will have to go through the approval process and all that before the campaign goes live. But I wanted to give you all, as I said, a chance to kind of get an inside look at that process and what that's like. So yes, thank you for tuning in. I appreciate any support that you can give this process. I will be posting links to all of my relevant social media as well as the campaign itself, the link to the campaign, when all of that stuff is ready. But for now, I wanted to put this out there and just get the ball rolling, right? So this will be a series of videos that will be pretty raw and unedited. I don't plan on really editing these very much at all. So you might get some moments of silence. I'm going to try and kind of chatter with everybody to keep things lively. But but yeah, this will be kind of just me and who I am and the world that I've created that I'm really proud of. I am genuinely very proud of this world, and I've run a couple of campaigns now in this world, and it's a joy to get to just to expose people to this world and give them a chance to run free and discover all of these wonderful things about the world of Solaria. So, so yeah, the process of putting the book together, I have a lot of, as I said, raw material. So I have hundreds of pages of written material describing the world, describing the cultures, the different things that players will find here, and then what I need help with, what a big portion of the funding will go towards, is finding really talented artists that can help me, visualize the world of Solaria and really bring it to life for people. TTRPG books are always really exciting and colorful, and I want to have the Rended Wall be a book that's just like that and be something that people are proud to have on their shelves. So yeah, that's where we're at. I have dozens of maps, but I thought I would go through the world map, and this video might then be a little bit longer than some others, just because I am going to be kind of talking about a lot of the different locations here as we go. But this, as I said, is a world I'm really excited about, and so I want people to get a chance to kind of see what it's all about, and hopefully they can fall in love with it too. You know, so this is Solaria. Solaria is a world that has experienced and survived two very cataclysmic events in their past. So the first event in the past was many tens of thousands of years ago, and so the details of it are really lost to the people that are alive today. They don't really know how it happened, but something did happen in which one of the world's two moons was shattered into pieces. And then something with some immense power was able to gather those pieces and construct a massive wall that bisects the two halves of the planet from north to south. So basically, the entire border of this map, this is an entire hemisphere, this is an entire one hemisphere of this world. So this entire map would essentially be surrounded by a wall that is uh, close to 80 miles high. So it has become a subject of religious worship, of awe, of mystery. People do not know what it is or how it got there or why it's there, any of that. So the world has been essentially isolated and stuck on this one side of the planet away from the second half. Why? You'll have to find out. But then the second of those cataclysmic events in Solarian history happened about 50 or so years before the events of this book, and that happened. We'll start actually right over here. The City of the Dead. So, City of the Dead is a city that it's also called Gorodatin, which I won't bother spelling. We'll get some more detailed maps as we delve into in further entries in the developer diaries. But for right now, most people in the world of Solaria do refer to it simply as the City of the Dead. No one lives there anymore because this cataclysmic event that happened directly over this city. There's a massive explosion in the wall right by this city that blew pieces of the wall outward for many miles, all the way out into this huge desert. People ran from the city. It was essentially deserted for several decades before some uh, bandits, roving gangs, and a few uh, nefarious magic users have taken up residence now in the City of the Dead. So most people leave it alone, and it has a really horrible reputation because of this event that happened. It was incredibly horrifying for anybody around. And then what resulted was this huge crack in this massive wall that now, even from a great distance, being 80 miles high, people can see it from way out, hundreds of miles, if not close to 1,000 miles out. So people can see this on the horizon, and what they see now when they look in this direction is a huge crack in the wall. With you can kind of like see through it essentially, which people could not do before. And what has resulted then in the past 50 years is this influx of strange races of people or strange beings, creatures that have somehow made their way through and have kind of uh, not infiltrated, because not all of them are necessarily good or evil. That just has happened to them. But they have kind of entered Solarian society. Many of them are viewed with kind of fear, and people keep their distance. If someone came from the other side, they're not too sure of them, and so it's created this stress between cultures, between peoples, and players will have an opportunity to choose to be one of those people who has come from the other side and has come into this society that they are kind of unaware of, but they will also be met with some kind of fear. So it'll give players an interesting chance to play around with their backgrounds as they enter this world. The book is planned to be completely compatible with SRD rules or the current 5e rule set. But I want to add some interesting new optional mechanics for people, because there's a lot of huge, not a lot, but there is a huge structure around the entire world. Uh, there's some, that megalophobia that sets in when people get too close, where this massive thing is rearing on the horizon. They don't really necessarily know how to handle it or how to think about it. So I think it'll give players a chance to really explore, kind of like like the Call of Cthulhu games where people get a chance to explore things like sanity and fear. I think that is a really interesting mechanic, and because of what players are going to be experiencing, that would be true to their characters. They wouldn't necessarily charge in seeing these things and be totally fine with it. They're going to be unsure. They're going to be scared. So I want that to translate into gameplay a little bit. But anyway, I'm rambling a little bit. As I said, this will happen. This is you're getting me. This is me talking about my game. So this is what's going to happen. Moving south from the City of the Dead, we find the Shining Jungle. The Shining Jungle has a network of rivers running through it that empty out into the sea to the south. The Shining Jungle is so called because, for some reason, being so close to the wall, things would be experiencing massive amounts of shade and shadow compared to what they would in a normal planet without such a huge structure in the way. So essentially, when they're this close to the wall, the sun would set behind the wall at early afternoon or so. And so this jungle does not receive the same amount of sunlight that a typical jungle would, and yet somehow it is thriving. And it is called the Shining Jungle because most of the trees and plants there have a kind of bioluminescence to them, as well as the animals. They have certain parts of them that are very shiny, kind of like some fish or cave lichen, things like that, that have that natural bioluminescence. Most things in the Shining Jungle have that. And so when outsiders enter the Shining Jungle, they experience this like kaleidoscope of glowing colors from everything around. There is a society of tribes that live throughout the jungle because the ground level of the jungle is so packed with dangerous creatures. Most of them live up in the trees. Trees are very large, and so they've built these huge kind of tree cities up in the branches, and that's where most of them live. And then they venture down for hunting and scouting and things like that. Um, but that is the Shining Jungle. It is. We'll go into more detail. I will go into more detail about all of these different nations and stuff as we kind of take a closer examination of all of them in further diary entries. But for right now, this is kind of what I'm wanting to do is just give a brief overview, just to give people a taste of the variety of places in Solaria that are open to exploration. Moving to the east from the Shining Jungle, across this mountain range, we see the nation of Bustaraf. So Bustaraf is well known for being the shipbuilders of the world. So their capital city down here has a huge shipyard where they haul in lumber from the huge forest north and ship it downriver to the city where they use the lumber to build these massive fleets of ships that are then sold off as kind of exports to the other nations of Solaria. Bustarf is also known for copper being mined from this mountain range here in what is called the Great Horn. Guess why it's called that? It's just kind of a horn peninsula jutting out into the ocean here. And so they have copper, they have shipbuilding, and then they are also known for wine made out of something called blood fruit, which is very much like blood oranges, but it's more like grapes. So they make wine out of it, and then the wine has this deep red scarlet color that is very reminiscent of blood, and it has a reputation for just having this really sweet flavor that is also shipped all over the world. So Bustarf is well known for being exporters of various goods with the other nations that they are allied with. So that brings us to the avowed nations. So the avowed nations are four countries that make up kind of the central column of Solaria here. So we have Bustarf. North of that, we have Orosan. North of that, we have Hivi's Rise, and then north of that, we have Milanus. So those four are all avowed nations. They have taken a treaty with one another that they have abided by for the last 500 years. So they are all cooperative, communicative with one another. Diplomatic relations are fairly good, depending on the actions of the players or certain NPCs. The things are rife with, of course, political intrigue and things like that. So the nations get along on paper, but then, certain things might be going on behind the scenes that are just waiting to kind of be uncovered and found out. So Bustarf is one of those four. If we head north, kind of in a loop up from Bustarf, then we have Orosan. Orosan is known for being the highest producer of gold in the world. So the mountains here have thick, thick veins of gold ore that are constantly being mined. And so Orosan now has, despite it being relatively small as a nation, they do consider this desert to the west to be part of their borders, but no, it's largely empty. It has very few settlements. It's largely just a vast stretch of um, desert that's just full of dust storms and mysterious desert bandits and things like that. But Orosan itself is very wealthy, despite its small size. And it also brings in visitors from all the other nations because it has also amassed along the coast a huge array of various hotels and kind of resorts, these kind of large buildings, almost like palaces, that are meant to draw in wealthy people from around the world. And so it has a little bit of a medieval Las Vegas feel to it. And it also is very much separated into social castes depending on what people's personal or family fortunes are. So it is a I guess it plutocracy or an oligarchy almost, because those who have the most wealth are the ones who are in control. So that is kind of what Orosan is all about. Bustarif, coming back to Bustarif just very briefly, the people in control of Bustarif are three brothers who rule the kingdom together. They rule various aspects of the kingdom, and they may or may not always get along, right? They're brothers. It happens. But they are royal brothers, and so Bustarif tends to be a little bit of a mix-up as far as the political side of things. Orosan is very strict on, like, if you have the money, he who has the gold makes the rules. It's a very golden rule kind of situation in Orosan. But they also trade then with other nations to supply their nation's coffers with the gold that they need, et cetera, et cetera. So that is Orosan in a nutshell. Very brief overview of all of these places. But as I said, we'll get it more into it later. Hivi's Rise is really awesome. Hivi's Rise is one of my favorite spots because it is a city on the coast. The capital city on the coast here is built in three levels on a cliffside. So the sea cliffs rise up, but then over the past, however long eras and eons of Solarian history, the waves of the ocean below have eroded out a huge sea cavern, essentially, that is underneath. This cavern is kind of hollowed out underneath the top level of the city, which is at the top of the cliffs. So the kind of more influential noble people and the more wealthy people do live kind of on that ground level, but then below, in the two other layers of this sea cavern, there is a huge smithy being powered by a flow of lava from underground that is kind of flowing out, and they use the heat from that to power the forge. And Hivi's Rise has thus gained a reputation for being the center of smithing and weapon making and armor making in Solaria. So if you have a Hevitian sword or a Hevitian axe, that is known to be excellent steel, and it is highly prized and highly sought after. Other places obviously have their own steel production, but Hivi's Rise just has this reputation for attracting very skilled smiths and metal workers and things like that. So ships coming into Hivi's Rise would then sail into this huge sea cavern and then dock underground, essentially. And then they would take these massive lifts that are powered by huge chains and be lifted up to the other levels of the city depending on their needs or where they need to go. And then people will venture out from the upper level of the city out into the countryside beyond, which then kind of slopes downward a little bit to the south, but then has these mountain ranges and such to the west, where they do, some iron mining and things like that. And then the coast here leads up into the Sea of Orcas, which is so named because there are huge pods of orcas that will swim about here and kind of come here for their mating season. But then Milanus is just to the north. Milanus is known to be the scholarly or intellectual or educational center of Solaria. So this includes colleges of various schools of magic. So people will make Milanus their destination if they seek to become more skilled in their chosen path of magical abilities, things like that. Milanus also, though, has a reputation for having these schools of science, and they study the geology of the surrounding mountains, and they have these vast observatories that look out at the stars above. So they study astronomy, all sorts of things. But if you want to study something and really find the heart of the matter, you want to go to Milanus. Milanus is the place to be for the learned to go. Moving then back over to the west here, we have the Mountains of Midnight, which are so called because they're so close to the wall that they have bathed, the wall has bathed all these mountains in just nearly constant shadow. They get maybe a couple hours of sunlight a day. The rest of the time, it is black as night here. So it's a very dangerous environment to explore. But because of its proximity to Milanus, there also have been tales and legends of some very powerful wizards and sorcerers that have made the Mountains of Midnight their hideout, and they have come here to study the ways of dark magic in secret. So the Mountains of Midnight are the site of some wonderful quests if players so desire to brave the slopes there. To the south, we have a place called the Burning Swamp. Now, the Burning Swamp is actually modeled after a huge peat swamp, and I believe it's in northern Russia or Finland or Scandinavia, one of those kind of northern areas over on across the pond, as they say. Um, but essentially, there was a fire that was started many years ago, and the fire is still burning in this peat swamp because peat has a way of just smoldering and smoldering for forever. People will use peat as burning as fuel to burn, for house fires and cooking and things like that. So settlements around the burning swamp do that. However, it we'll start at the beginning, I suppose, why it's the burning swamp. When the rending happened, what's why it's called the game is called the Rended Wall because the wall was rended by this massive explosion. When that happened, several errant chunks flew outwards, but one of them spiraled far north and actually landed in the swamp and started this fire. So that's why it is the burning swamp, is because this fire has been burning for the last 50 years. So the whole area is covered in this really noxious black smoke. It's a very dangerous place to try and navigate, not just because of the geographical features, but also because there is a really dangerous and frightening cult that makes their home here. This cult is headed by a man who first discovered some of the wreckage from the wall and was driven mad by it. And so he started essentially a very twisted cult or a religion almost that is remained isolated in this burning swamp and are it remains very dangerous for outsiders to visit the swamp here. Nevertheless, the lakes here are to the southeast are relatively peaceful. There are some settlements along the river And the grass plains to the east are popular hunting grounds for Havitians to come and find large game and such. If we move south and kind of finish up this whole western section of Celeria, we are at the Storm Plains. So the Storm Plains are stormy because there's an 80-mile wall just to the west that is essentially disrupting it's disrupting the Coriolis's effects whole deal. And so it is essentially as the world spins, this wall is essentially catching and gathering a lot of the atmosphere from this half of the planet and is pushing it back downwards into these vicious storm cycles that will roam across the plains and make for some very frightening displays of thunder and lightning. However, the lightning is gathered by the shamans and medicine people of the storm plains. It is gathered using some very mysterious means and is used to then power some of their magical abilities. So the Storm Plains, the tribes of the Storm Plains, or the clans, I should say, of the Storm Plains, they're divided into 5 distinct clans, and they're very mysterious and unique amongst the world of Solaria. Mainly because most people just simply do not understand them and don't really quite get what they do or how they do it or any of that. So yeah, another wonderful and enchanting place for players to explore and kind of dig to the bottom of some of these mysteries of what makes Celeria the way it is. Um, so we'll zoom out a little bit. We have some islands here in the Central Seas, some groups of islands that can be visited. There is a community. I don't know if community is the right word for it, but it is a group, almost a whole nation of pirates that sail the various oceans of Celeria, and so it can be dangerous depending on what part of the oceans you are in at what part of the or what time of year. So that's something that players, if they find themselves, owning a ship in Celeria or just booking passage to go, say, from Bustarif over to the Crystalline Archipelago, that they may run into some pirates on the way. And, there's a chance of that. So, something else to bear in mind as you're exploring. If we start up at the top here, the Tundric Expanse is it's pretty obvious. There's a lot of tundra here, and it's an expanse of very flat, icy land. It's a very kind of desolate area, except for a tribe of people known as the Ettin, Ettin, and it's a name of these kind of almost like a race of barbarians that they hunt these big beasts called aurochs up in the snowy lands, and they are definitely a kind of a smaller and isolated nation or country culture of people, but they have a lot of really fascinating history behind them, and their way of life is really interesting. Like to get across these wastelands to avoid sun blindness, they have these special goggles that almost evoke a little bit of a steampunk feel, but they have tiny little slits cut in to avoid that snow blindness as they're traveling and hunting on the snow wastes. And then there is a inland ocean here, separated by just a little strait here. But this inland ocean is perpetually covered in a strange black ice. And so it holds this ocean here, this inland sea holds a sort of mystical power for the people of the Tundric Expanse. The abyssal ocean is so called because it is the place where the ocean runs the absolute deepest. And so, uh, no spoilers, but at some point, the players may get a chance to delve under the waves and find some mysteries in the ocean itself. And the abyssal ocean is the place where that is the deepest. So, it can be dangerous, but who knows what you might find down there. you know? Um, Lands of the Lamented. So the City of the Dead has a magical and kind of mysterious in that the people of Solaria do not know what has caused it, but there is a maelstrom, like a huge storm of magical energy that is just constantly swirling over the City of the Dead. And it, even seeing it from a great distance, you can see this kind of greenish, eerie glow over it in these huge tornadoes that whirl over it. The lands of the Lamented are almost like a strange counterpart to that, where instead of a place where it seems the dead are still there and are still present in the world and are swirling about and screaming, they aren't doing that here in the lands of the Lamented. You will see ghosts and spirits of past and dead heroes from the legends of Solaria. You may find crypts or tombs here, but the spirits walk around very silently. The whole area just has this eerie quietness to it that if you disturb that silence, there may or may not be consequences to that. It may be silent for a reason. That's something that players need to explore as they if they are brave enough to venture this far to the east. Again, as the wall on the western side has done, the wall on the eastern side kind of almost does the opposite, where instead of gathering storms and all of this, the air has kind of a dead end effect to it, where the winds and ocean currents are much quieter. So there's a area here that I'm referring to as the windless waters that kind of stretch from the lands of the lamented all the way down to the south, where sailing is difficult because of that. It's like the doldrums here on planet Earth, where that same thing happens, not because of a massive wall that's been built, but just because of the natural kind of effects of the wind currents and such. So again, it is based on real life, but I've taken some liberties with that and inserted it into this because of how the wall operates. So um, it does make things just kind of real interesting for players or game masters that are trying to navigate in that part of the world. Something something to kind of give it a little bit of twist. The Crystalline Archipelago. The archipelago is this vast chain of islands in this kind of serpentine shape. The center island here, it's obviously, this is zoomed way out, so it's lacking a lot of detail. But the center islands are kind of essentially split into two uh, that are situated right up close to one another. But this place is the site of some massive pieces of the first moon that was shattered so long ago that were not used to construct the wall. And they have a lot of the rocks here have a very fascinating kind of crystalline quality to them. The minerals and ores from the archipelago are incredibly unique and have a very powerful inherent magical quality to them as well. So artifacts and things from the archipelago are often very prized and sought after by treasure hunters. But then the archipelago, because of the nature of all of this, it's also the site of some very powerful inherent magic users that are just born with some really powerful abilities to cast spells or summon up those eldritch powers to do their bidding. The Crystalline Archipelago is uh, yeah, the if someone wants to be that kind of inherent magic user that then goes out and explores the rest of the world, the archipelago is a great place to choose as a background because of that fact. You can have this kind of it's in your blood, it's in something that you were just kind of born with that is incredibly powerful that people can recognize. Other Solarians can recognize that in people from the archipelago. And then finally, in our tour of the world of Solaria, we come to the realm of the ever fog. It is called that because the weather patterns here have created this system of clouds and fog that perpetually hangs over this continent and has shrouded the whole land in this air of mystery. It's very difficult to be able to to tell what's going on until you have actually landed there. At which point the native creatures or the native peoples may or may not welcome you to this land. So the realm of the Everfog is someplace that, from a purely game mechanical standpoint, is someplace that players would want to go when they've achieved several levels under their belt. Otherwise could be very deadly to go there, but it is also the site of some of the more powerful kind of answers to why Celeria is the way it is and what has made it this way, what give some clues into the origins of this huge wall that surrounds this entire half of a planet. So that is a place that people will will want to go and explore and will want to check out. So that is the world of Solaria, everyone. This is only one half of the planet. Speaking, just thinking in terms of a Kickstarter campaign, stretch goals would be further volumes that explore the other half of the planet, and kind of all of that stuff in detail. For right now, though, this source book would take players from level 1 all the way up to about level 12, if we're talking about kind of the SRD or 5e rules. That's about where you could be with this whole world here. So yeah, that's kind of in the future and in the works. I have that material here. As I said, this is a world I've been working on for a really long time. So I want to get it out there. I want to show it to people. I'm really excited about it. I get super passionate talking about it. I know I've rambled on for a really long time at this point. I don't know how long, but it's just something that I am really, really passionate about, and I really want to let other people out in this sandbox and let them explore and let them see what kind of adventures they can find on their tabletop games. You know, so that concludes number one of our Developer Diaries series, and this also obviously a tour of Solaria. So this is the world that the book will be all about, and this is the world that we'll dig into in more detail later in further diary entries. There'll be kind of updates on the process, and then I'll spend a few minutes talking about the various nations or spots within the world, as well as I'll keep you all posted on what kind of stuff is going on with the campaign, with the Kickstarter campaign, and getting the book published and getting the book out there. So yes, thank you all so much for watching and listening. Go ahead and subscribe if you would be so kind. That would be really awesome. Comment if you have any questions or comments about the process. I welcome any and all engagement. Please talk to me. I welcome it. But until our next entry, thank you so much, and we'll talk soon. Take care.